Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. Be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Let's talk about first the season coming to an end the way it did. Just if you would encapsulate your thoughts on the game Sunday night against Tampa.
Look, I heard your show yesterday, and you were right. The energy got sucked out once Jared Cook fumbled the ball away. And I'm telling you, as soon as I saw him catch that pass, and as soon as I saw the way he was holding the ball, like just with one hand out, I was like, he's going to fumble it. And it's exactly what happened. And there was only 3,800 fans there, and you could just feel that the momentum just got sucked away then. And it's just another scenario of just another heartbreaking loss in the postseason where you're one of the best teams in the regular season and you can't get it done in the playoffs. You can't even get it done to where in 3 of the last 4 years you can't get past the divisional round, much less you're losing heartbreakers in the NFC Championship game. I mean, that only happened once. So, the turnovers were huge. And I felt like Drew Brees was probably pressing, likely knowing that was his last game and last opportunity, and add it all up. Look, the defense could only do as much as it could do, given the spots they were put in. And so here we are again. And this is, to me, especially for your Baton Rouge audience, I think this is almost like what LSU is has just endured now. I mean, there is exodus. There will be player exodus. And where do you go from here? And I think this is, that's a bigger picture. I mean, you're just asking me about the loss, but I cannot help but just go into that direction right now. And I don't know where they're going now. And it's definitely a bizarre world where I've never, in my 15 years of covering the Saints, I don't know what to think of this team at this point right now.
Well, let's delve into some of that, and we'll get to specifics as they become clear as we move through the offseason. But do you think this is a bigger offseason? Let's put the quarterback position aside, because I think we all agree there's going to be a change there. But is this a bigger season on the staff and the front office with already some of the exodus we've seen, or with what roster turnover is inevitable?
Well, I think we know what the staff turnover is going to be. I don't think we completely know what the roster turnover is going to be. And I think that is the tricky question. And look, if you look right now, it sounds like Aaron Glenn is going to be leaving and joining Dan Campbell in Detroit to be the defensive coordinator with the Lions. So that's another subtraction of attractive coaches being plucked away, unlike what we're hearing about with Ryan Nielsen, that he's going to be staying with the Saints, and that's, of course, a whole ball of wax, which I've heard you opine about for the last half hour, rightfully so. And so
we're going to get there.
Yeah, I figured we would. I hope we would. But anyway, you look at it in the sense of I don't know the moves completely where the Saints are going to go on their roster. Coaching staff, we had a feeling that people were going to be picked off. But this is a thing where I know Mickey Loomis and I know Kai Harley, and they're great with the cap, but this is a different set of circumstances where the cap shifts downward, not upward. And you're dealing with a quarterback where you've kicked the can with down the line, and as we assume Drew Brees is going to retire, and you got to deal with that number, and there are a lot of numbers you got to deal with. I'm sure they have it mapped out on their page, but things change, and there are moves that probably are going to happen that we're not going to see coming. And so I think that is the trickier part of the situation here.
Okay, so we'll get to the roster in a second. Let me then just finish on the staff. There's going to be turnover. You mentioned Dan Campbell. It was Ian Rappaport just a bit ago tweeted out that what Larry just mentioned there, that Aaron Glenn is joining Dan Campbell in Detroit as the new defensive coordinator. And then you mentioned Ryan Nielsen, who was apparently had agreed in principle on a deal to become LSU's defensive coordinator, and then reportedly Sean Payton and the Saints have blocked that. So give me your 2 cents there with what all transpired, or what transpired.
All right, the sense that I have of the situation is that LSU did not make the call to Sean Payton to do the professional courtesy of say, hey, we're interested in him. Let's talk about it. I mean, and they're not doing that during the season. And this is different than a promotion within the NFL, though. And it seems like that's the stipulation in the contract. And because if Ryan Nielsen was going to be promoted to a defensive coordinator spot in the NFL, that's probably not going to be blocked. But in college, it's a different scenario. But, case by case, that could be the situation. But still, to me, that news got out. And if maybe that Sean Payton had a heads up before this, because he's not paying attention to what is happening in the LSU defensive coordinator search. Like I've seen on Twitter, people are saying, well, it's out here, this, that, and the other. Sean Payton does not pay attention to what's going on with the LSU coaching search. You make the call, you let him know, this, that, and the other. And like Ryan Nielsen's not in game week, he say, hey, coach, I might be up for this job. I don't know. But that's not the way it works. And so the channels, to me, it doesn't sound like were properly followed. Sean Payton was probably ticked off. And he's in his rights to block this. Like, that is why you have a contract. He is in his rights to do that. So when you look at it, Ryan Nielsen is a very good coach. Sean Payton has just lost Dan Campbell. He's losing Aaron Glenn. Dennis Allen is reportedly going to go interview for the Eagles job. He wants to keep some of his staff there, and if he finds an avenue to do it, he doesn't want to stop someone from getting a promotion, but if it's in his eyes seemingly underhanded, then he's going to do it. And like, this is just me talking. Maybe there's some underlying feelings with Joe Brady. I don't know. Like, I'm just thinking out loud, and so it's to me that he did not feel like it was followed in the proper channels. He wants his coach. He's hemorrhaging with coaches. And so he blocked it. And it is in his right to be able to do so in terms of that contract.
He's on Twitter at Larry Holder. Read his stuff, theathletic.com/New Orleans. So they'll continue to assess their staff into this offseason, then also the roster, as you mentioned, in a year where the cap is likely to dip below $180 million potentially. One guy who we assume is going to be back is Michael Thomas. He's got a giant cap number. It's hard to imagine them moving him. But we learned today, Larry, that Thomas is going to have multiple potentially ankle surgeries, what Adam Schefter reported. How much of this was known in and around the organization, just the severity of what Michael Thomas was dealing with?
It had to have been known, given that they tried to give him the final 3 weeks off just to give him some rest to try to see if they could make a run at it in the playoffs. So that makes sense to me. It's amazing where we've come from with Michael Thomas. A year ago, he was the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year, of the league. And now we're talking about him being one of the more disappointing players in the league, and a lot of that has to do with injury. And we know he had his knucklehead moments with C.J. Gardner-Johnson and such, but still, you got to have this guy back healthy. And he tried to fight through it. You could tell he was not himself. You could tell Drew Brees was not himself either. So, so I saw what Adam Schefter reported, how that Michael Thomas wanted to kind of give it his all, knowing that this could easily be Drew Brees' last year. And I totally understand that being the case and would believe that was the case. But you need that guy to be tip-top, especially given who could be quarterback next year. It won't be Drew Brees, highly likely. And so you need to have that guy ready to go, because if it's a lesser quarterback, you've got to rely on your skill position players even more.
Beyond Thomas, you alluded to the fact that there may be some surprises. There feel like some obvious guys that are going to be cap casualties. As you think of it, if you're comfortable doing so, roll off a few names that you think are just very obvious cap casualty candidates.
What do you want, cap casualties or guys who are not going to be re-signed because they'll probably get bigger deals? Because that's a different list.
Right, because Hendrickson is part of that, right? I don't know if they can afford Trey Hendrickson. That feels like one that's pretty obvious. I don't know who else is on that list. Maybe Marcus Williams. But
yeah, probably Marcus Williams, Sheldon Rankins, I probably put on that list
okay.
as well.
So
yeah.
now you're sifting through kind of how this comes about. I think if Drew Brees isn't back, that saves you $14 million. But there are some other guys. As I wrote down my list, but I'll let you, if you have any off the top of your head, to see if our list kind of corroborate.
Yeah, look, like players like Hendrickson, Rankins, and Marcus Williams, they don't count next year's cap, and they're like almost $100 million over. So those guys are in another category.
Right.
So we're talking, Jared Cook. His salary would be what he would count toward the cap would be minimal. He's basically a free agent, so you actually kind of have to throw him off the list. Quan Alexander. Let's see, maybe like a Janoris Jenkins, maybe an Emmanuel Sanders, maybe a Thomas Morstead, a Nick Easton.
Yeah.
You look at people like that, and you could kind of go through the list maybe, and then say they have to sign extensions to Ramczyk and Lattimore, lower their cap number next year, ship them off. You could go position by position and find some of these guys to where they have to either kind of restructure or just let loose. And so, look, maybe they trade some guys. This is – I look at it back to like 2013 where there was a shift when you lost. In that offseason, you lost Jonathan Vilma, Will Smith, Lance Moore, Darren Sproles, Roman Harper, Malcolm Jenkins. And that was a culture shock.
Yeah.
And they replaced Malcolm Jenkins with Jarris Byrd. They overspent for Jarris Byrd, and obviously that blew up in their face. So, I'm not saying that the results are going to happen what happened in 2014, like 7-9, but this could easily be a big culture shock. We're already seeing it now within the staff. It could be a culture shock, and we're not even talking about Drew Brees right now.
Yeah. 2014 is a great comp for what transpired on the roster. It feels like it's going to be similar, which is why I and many others reacted so emotionally after the game on Sunday, because it really was the end of this era. And I don't know, Larry, there is something kind of exciting about the unknown of what's ahead, but one thing's for sure, it's going to be a lot different, man. It's going to be a lot different next year.
I would totally agree. This will be the first year likely that I'm not covering Drew Brees as a quarterback for the Saints. I've covered all 15 years, and we've gone through the ride together. I started in 2006, and I'm going through the ride with him, and it's going to be bizarre for me too. So yeah, it's definitely a culture shock that I don't even know if Saints fans are even really they even really know what's about to hit them. I mean, that's how crazy it's going to be.
Make sure you read his stuff, theathletic.com/New Orleans. He's on Twitter at Larry Holder. Y'all give him a follow. He's with us each Tuesday here during the season. Larry, we appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kyle Trask for life.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.